On April 13th of 2020 on the Howard Stern Show, you said, and I quote, "Trump has delivered for New York." He has. And then you talked about Trump sending the ship, the comfort ship. Mind you that the comfort ship was sent to New York on March 30th of 2020. That was just a few days after you signed the directive to put COVID-19 patients into nursing homes on March 25th, which led to murdering people's parents, grandparents, and great-grandparents. Yes, murdering them.
Aside from MTG playing way too loose with the term murder, referring to the disastrous policy that allowed for positive patients in recovery to be admitted into nursing homes while hospitals were overwhelmed. Remember, Cuomo wasn't alone as other states followed the same or similar policies. And while there's no defense for Cuomo and his administration fudging data about nursing home deaths and transfer rates, you're sadly mistaken if you think MTG and the Republicans are putting on this hearing because they actually care about the deaths of these people. They're only doing this because Cuomo's the easiest target out there, and they need to distract from Donald Trump and his administration's response to the start of the pandemic.
Today you said, and I'll quote you, you said that high deaths in nursing homes is a conspiracy theory. Would you like to turn to the people here in this room today whose mothers died and their fathers died in these nursing homes and call them conspiracy theorists? Do you have the audacity to do that, Mr. Cuomo?
I never said that, Congresswoman.
You said that today. You're under oath.
I never
there
said
is video. There's video of all of your words today. You can be fact checked. We'll do that when this is over.
Yeah.
You also blamed staff for spreading COVID in nursing homes, not COVID patients. You blamed the staff.
You know, regardless of any valid criticisms MTG is levying here, it all falls flat. Because this is nothing more than performative outrage and crocodile tears being weaponized to paint the Republicans as the heroes of the pandemic. In reality, they were responsible for pushing the misinformation and disinformation that fueled the pandemic's spread.
I've read a lot about you, including the fact that 13 women that work for you accused you of sexually inappropriate behavior, which, thanks to the Democrat DOJ, helped you out of that. But I'd like to say this, and I'll ask you, are you either the dumbest tool of the Chinese government, or did you know for a fact that you were being used by the Chinese spy that was working for you?
I've read a lot about you, too, Congresswoman. I think this is a very serious matter.
It is serious, that's right.
She was a junior member in my team. I wouldn't recognize her if she was in this room today. But I think it is a serious matter. I don't think this was just in New York. I think there is an infiltration of Chinese, maybe Russian operatives.
The Democrat Party's definitely had a problem with Chinese spies. Yes, you're right. And I want to remind you, you're under oath.
Yeah. And I think it's a serious issue, and I think the federal government and the state government should work together on it. The state government doesn't really have the ability to do the international reconnaissance, but the federal government does, and I think they should work together to make sure they're doing the best they can to do the vetting.
Hey, listen, Andrew Cuomo should be criticized. He's had more than his fair share of scandals, but that does not give permission for MTG and the Republicans to cynically use the deaths of millions of people worldwide just to run cover for their dear leader. Thankfully, though, Jamie Raskin also took part in this hearing and put things into perspective.
But I confess, Mr. Chairman, that I'm appalled by the majority's decision to evade and bypass the central events of the epidemic for totally political reasons. The broader and authentic context for this hearing is, of course, the spectacular failure of Donald Trump's reckless and incompetent pandemic response, a failure which led to the unnecessary deaths of tens or hundreds of thousands of American citizens, according to Trump's own officials. In fact, Donald Trump's knowing and willful lies cost America at least tens of thousands of deaths, according to his own White House coronavirus response coordinator, Dr. Deborah Birx, who the chairman just cited as a decisive professional and medical authority. And she told the select subcommittee that more than 130,000 lives would have been saved during the Trump administration if basic and proven public health measures had been implemented instead of disregarded. On January 22nd, 2020, when America identified its first case of COVID-19, Trump stated, quote, "We have it totally under control." He goes on to say, "One day it's like a miracle. It will disappear. It is going away." He then proceeded to abdicate any responsibility for our pandemic response and said, quote, "I don't take any responsibility at all." When he systematically failed to supply the states with critical medical equipment and PPE, he set off an interstate death match for medical supplies, telling governors simply to, quote, "Try getting it yourselves."
The fact that we're considering to bring somebody on with no scientific or medical credentials, who's falsely claimed for decades that vaccines cause autism, who has, quite frankly, said just outrageous comments about science and medicine, that this person would come in to gut the NIH, I think is shameful. I think is shameful. And Ms. Green, you can clap all you want. I'm very concerned that someone that wants to gut the NIH, HHS, and other services could be put in charge of health of any kind.
Congress is back in session for the first time since Donald Trump and the Republicans secured the destruction of our country for at least the next 2 years. And Marjorie Taylor Greene is still making a complete fool of herself.
It is shameful, it's dangerous, and if this committee is about pandemic prevention, we should be very concerned as a country that RFK Jr. could be put in charge of health when he is a vaccine denier and has caused great harm to the American public.
Dr. Fauci lied to the American people, abusing his power and position and role, very powerful role, paid for by the American tax people. He lied, and many, many people died.
You're all smart enough to know that this is purely conspiratorial garbage being weaponized to sow distrust in the medical community to justify gutting vital government agencies. MTG could not care less about the millions of people who died and are still dying from COVID, because all of this testimony is just a tryout for another position within the government with more power.
Schools were shut down. People's jobs were shut down. Employment was ended. Small businesses were shut down. Life, as everyone knew it, was shut down. This caused violations of people's First Amendment rights, freedom of speech, freedom of religion. People couldn't even go to the beach. Then suicides hit record highs. And the saddest thing is there was record suicide rates seen among children and a mental health crisis released on Americans like never before. Now there's massive delays in education and loss in learning. What was absolutely repulsive is the forced masking requirements of children. Children were not at risk of being hospitalized or dying from COVID-19, yet children became one of the worst victims of the malpractice and abuse of power by your agencies and by people in charge in many cities, states, and the government. It was absolutely horrendous.